The law says you should not do so until you are authorized. But it could be anything, anywhere between 2021. It is a very good operation. It was handled professionally. The leadership believes in this, and this is what we will do. I told them this morning, we react according to how you play the game with us. You see, even before we fire the tear gas, we have gravitated the use of force.
Political stability for national unity enhances democratic governance by promoting a sense of belonging and participation. Citizens feel more invested in their country's political processes, leading to more responsible leadership and accountability. Mohamed Bakar Kamara, AYV News.
That's the first excerpt of a story there about the All People's Congress Party and a high-level delegation which met them at their office this weekend. We saw the Public Safety Secretary also amplifying the voices regarding the recommendations of the CEO. Melvin, let me start off with you. Let's go first of all with the internal things, the recent happenings within the All People's Congress Party, the leader and deputy leader signing off and then getting out. And now this coming up, they're still stressing on the tripartite recommendations not being met.
Well, it's quite interesting that some of the people that are saying that are talking about tripartite are some of the people that are against electoral justice. So I wonder how they will be reconciling these two notions. But it's clear that, yes, some of the recommendations by the tripartite, particularly that has got to do with provisions in Article 4 that talks about expeditiously implementing or the actions of the recommendations, they are yet to be implemented. For me, I'm disappointed, firstly, in the APC, and I'm also disappointed in the government. They ought not to have waited until ECOWAS or the Joint Mission came for them to update Sierra Leoneans. We've been asking these questions to Chief Minister, to the APC negotiators. What's the status? So it seems as if it was deliberate keeping Sierra Leoneans on the dark, and at the end of the day, coming to the world to tell them that this is... I think this is a Sierra Leonean problem, in as much as, yes, moral guarantors have been doing their part. But if you look at even the tripartite report... Do
you think that shows some lack of respect for the people as well?
Of course, they respect the moral guarantors more than the people of Sierra Leone. And it's quite a big slap on our faces. But again, I'm more disappointed in the APC for the fact that it seems as if they are using their ordinary supporters, the grassroots SO2, to exhibit their, what I would call, disagreements. For God's sake, how can the APC Secretariat or administration invite the police at the 11th hour without noticing their supporters? I have done my research, and it was very obvious that these people came to the party office on the invite of some members of the very executive. How all of a sudden they can change codes to say, we don't need you here. I think if I was a member of the APC, the current officers, they must cast a vote of no confidence in them. All the officers. Because at the end of the day, we are having some of their supporters now at the CID, whether they've been released or not. So it's so unfortunate. And this is a message to every Sierra Leonean that these politicians are taking us for granted, be they in the APC or in the SLPP. See how their supporters were treated. And it's easy for someone to say, oh, the police, they have used excessive force. But who invited the police? It's the very APC. So it's a slap, and they owe their supporters apologies, not for the only firing of tear gas or arresting of them, but for deceiving them.
All right, let me hold you there. I'll come back to the impact of the tripartite. Let me bring Amadou in. Amadou, shortly, the recommendations of the tripartite, it hinges on a lot so far, and the main opposition calling up to date saying that some of the recommendations in the tripartite committee have not yet been met, down like 4 or 5 months now after the report has been out. What impact do you think this has on democracy so far?
Well, in my opinion, I just think the APC really need to look at itself as a party and reflect on what they put forward in terms of when they were in this tripartite committee and coming up with some of these recommendations. And of course, we've seen some of the implementations around national unity, ranging from the president to address the nation and the opposition leader to as well address the nation. We've seen that being a fruitful strive so far in the implementation of the recommendations. And of course, the APC is saying some of the implementations, I mean the recommendation, are yet to be honored by the government of the day, with the fact that you still have political detainees in detention. But again, we've seen a case of having an attempted or coup in this particular country last year, November 26, which led to the release, the illegal release of prisoners. And since then, the government have been claiming that we are still waiting on the list to get these political detainees out of detention.
Okay.
And if you are still calling on that, and just as Melvin stated, now when we look at this whole thing about not achieving the national unity that you were talking about, what is the communication gap between the supporters of the APC party and that of the executive members? Because if you looked at what happened at the party office on that day, it's unfortunate, and this is why I always tell these the common Sierra Leoneans, before you get yourself clinging to these political parties, you should first of all look at the sincerity of those at the top end of affairs. As Melvin stated earlier on, I think they've deceived these people. You know, when it comes to, we saw the people claiming on that day that they are seeking for electoral justice on some of the placards. What was written there, you can easily say these people were being told by someone in the executive to come and be part of this. Who prepared them with the placards?
So Melvin, the genuinity and the sincerity is another question here with regards to Tripartite Committee's recommendation.
Exactly.
Now, the All People's Congress Party are saying there are still some issues of the political detainees not towards, and the government's bench is saying that they have some of these people who they claim to have been in the list are those who were part of the November 26 coup. The sincerity, do you think that both parties are not sincere with the public about what they put out and about achieving this recommendation?
No, they've not been sincere. That's why they've been taciturn in updating the public. You know, they've not been sincere. But I think the APC, they need to be good for themselves first. Because as an opposition, they are a government in waiting. If they have the guts to manipulate their supporters, what are the assurances that come 2028, they will not be manipulating the elections? And mind you, the disagreement here is who won the election. And even its tripartite report never stated that. And that's why they coined it divergent opinion. And some of us have argued that the moral guarantors should have taken a position as to what was needed.
Do you think the men opposition are holding on to their responsibility in terms of this recommendation very well?
Well, on their own part, they've returned to parliament, which is good. They've been playing their own parts, but the bulk of the implementation rests on the buck stops with the government.
Yes.
You cannot blame the APC for everything. The government must also be honest and sincere, because it's both of them that agreed to disagree for them to have this. Exactly. But there are issues within the APC that we must not turn blind eye to. The APC is caught up in an ideological quagmire. Electoral justice, which is, in my opinion, the voices of the grassroots, versus change. Now, let's see the albatross in the room. In the APC new constitution, it says if a leader contests and fails to win, that leader should relinquish his position 6 months after. So the question begs, Samura Kamara and ordinary Chairman Ramadan Majuba, did they adhere to this provision in terms of when? Of course, Honorable Chairman Ramadan Majuba relinquished his office. In fact, there is a catch there. Office, not the post. I think 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago. Whereas Dr. Samura Kamara is being stubborn in holding on. But again, I can sympathize with Samura Kamara. He, for example, is the one that is seriously affected. Because at the end of the day, of course, councillors, members of parliament, chairpersons were all affected. But primarily, I don't think you can extricate Samura Kamara at this point in time, because he has been part of the negotiations, he has been part of the conversation, he is the one that is the flag carrier on this electoral justice thing. And even if you look at his message, it is in tandem with the US ambassador, who said perpetrators of electoral injustice must be brought to book. So the aspect of how to reconcile electoral justice versus what's next is the quagmire that the APC is caught up in. And for me, for them to unceremoniously say that they have removed Samura Kamara, let them go. If I was the lawyer for Samura Kamara, I would challenge that.
Right, so
because even the provision that they are banking on does not state how the relinquishing of the position comes into effect.
All right, we'll get more on that as we move along. Let's take the next story. I'd press for time a little bit. Now, the next story we're dealing with has to do with this one. Say, Law Reforms Commission and partners are on a critical consultation to repeal the 60-years-old police law. These reforms comes to strengthen and empower the police so that they can have this review done very well. Now, human rights protection, enhanced police committee cooperation, among other things. Speaking at a consultative meeting on the review, Chairman Law Reform Commission, Yada Ashim Williams, said that the reform is largely concentrated on structural, administrative and technical changes without corresponding constitutional and legislative amendment. Edima Conte has more on the story.
As part of the Law Reform Commission and partners' efforts to formulate the content of a proposed bill that will replace the Police Act of 1964, a nationwide consultation was launched in Kenema, Bo, Makeni and Freetown. The current legislation is outdated, having been in effect for 60 years. By enacting the proposed law, citizens' liberties will be protected, police officers will be protected in the course of their duties, modern methods and techniques will be provided to the police to investigate white-collar crimes. Stringent punishments will be imposed on errant police officers, among other things.
These reforms largely concentrated on structural, administrative, and technical changes without corresponding constitutional and or legislative amendments. The result, therefore, is that the present structure and organization of the police is to a very large extent at variance with the Police Act 1964 and the Constitution of Sierra Leone. This reform is equally justified by the need to reorient the police to the new public security role which police forces play in modern democratic societies. A role that cannot be played without improving human rights, mending relationships with the public and communities, and ending arbitrariness at all levels.
Inspector General of Police William Fayaselu acknowledged the timeliness of the review, especially when the Sierra Leone Police is transitioning from a force to a service.
But then, this particular event, this review of this Police Act, is coming at a time when the Sierra Leone Police has embarked on the transition from being a force to a service. We want to see the world service reflected in this new Police Act. And I'm sure if you look at the Constitution, we look at force dimension, no more than mass production. So this is a perfect opportunity for us to do that transition. And that was also always so. What is happening now? Let's credence to what we are doing and so to give his full support to all of us.
With the input of the public and the dedication of both the Law Reform Commission and the Sierra Leone Police, this new act has the potential to greatly improve the safety and security of all Sierra Leoneans. Edima Conte, AYV News, Freetown.
Well, that's our second story that we shall be looking at this morning. Let me start with you again, Melvin. Transforming the Sierra Leone Police from a force to a service after 60-year-old with many complaints from the citizens. Do you think it's the right move and the right timing?
Well, of course, there is a need for review, and legal scholars will tell you that there is a specific period in which legal reforms can be instituted. And in this case, for the age-old Police Act, I think it is necessary. Apparently, what is informing the changes is what I'll be concerned with. Mm-hmm. Of course, if you are saying you are changing from a Sierra Leone police force to police service, there is already a model, a case study between Sierra Leone prisons and correctional service. But what's changed in terms of its modus operandi? So will this proposed law look at, for example, issues around who and how the Inspector General is appointed? Because undue influence on the police, especially coined orders from above, is one thing that has eroded the public trust and confidence in the police dispensing of its duty. So will this new law look into that? Of course, will this new law look into aspects of unfair treatment and compensation for arbitrary abuse of police power? If it is, I think it should be welcoming. Of course, if you are changing from force to service, the wherewithal, is it there? Because even with the force, there is a police charter, which is aimed at providing services. So I only hope this is not going to be a review of semantics, that, oh, it's no longer police force, but all the attributes of the force are still embedded in it. Right. But I think it should be welcoming, and aspects of compensation should be considered, aspects of investigation, but above all, the neutrality and independence of the police. So if there is any omission on who and how the Inspector General is appointed, I'm afraid there is a need for more review, because that is the bottom line of the problem.
Amadou, the police is moreover the first point of call in the justice system in the country, and a lot has been said about that, that the force that is now transferred into a service. Okay, so what are citizens expecting so far? You know, there are a lot of things in terms of education. Transforming something from a force to a service requires a little more intensifying education. There are a lot of issues around. What do you think should be done in the area of capacitating the policemen that are down there?
Well, firstly, I think we need to look at the recruitment of the police officers themselves, because it is very, very much important when it comes to having a police service with a well-organized system, and that will do things as the rules have been laid. We need to take out that political recommendations for recruitment, because these are the issues that we do have. This is why we have the orders from above thing being on top of every situation when it comes to policing in this country. And as you've stated earlier, investigations is being done by police. Also, again, we need to ensure that we have the professionals, and capacitating them should be key in this particular review, which should ensure that the police that they recruit, the officers that they recruit into the system, are well capacitated in order to carry out the services that they are responsible to carry out. Because it's not just about having a police force. That is why you have, after a series of training, after a series of recommendations, you still have the police being part of all negatives that we always talk about, ranging from political harassment.
Are citizens expecting some changes in these reforms?
Of course.
That has to do with the normal nomenclature of police, things that has to bring more impunitive measures for bribery, things that has to do with more impunitive
measures. That is what Sierra Leoneans are expecting, and especially when it comes to the traffic department. I see recently they've promoted the head of the traffic department. No offense, but I do question that, because we see the traffic department of the police sector is doing poorly in terms of the way they normally do it. And it is very obvious. You see them as beggars, yeah? Because they stop people unknowingly for no reason, and they just go around extorting money from people. And that is really a very serious concern. And this new law needs to also look at that, because the safety of the people are not being considered. Even for the checkpoints during the night, the safety of the people are not being considered. So we need to ensure that the laws that they are now reviewing in changing the police force into a service needs to be really looked into. Sierra Leoneans are expecting nothing but a real-time change with the new police law.
In investigation over time changes, over a period of time. Now, for example, you have a lot of things that have to do with cybercrime, a lot of things that has to do with other different kind of syndicates are coming up, and the capacity of the police to handle such. And also, do you think this is the right time for, we've seen many cases that have been, police are the prosecutors. You find out that even though they are not lawyers, they are the prosecutors. Imagine coming against a very strong lawyer who has been in the field for over 30 years, and you are prosecuting a matter, and you have to prove beyond reasonable doubt. Do you think the structural reform should capture them, bring in more and more lawyers into the police force, and then also capacitating the police for such kind of advanced crimes?
I think if there's going to be any capacity for the police, their salaries should be increased. I will tell you, angry man, no choice. And one big problem with our forces, not only the police, is morale. Their morale is low because they are not either paid well, or even if they are paid, sometimes their rice supply doesn't come on time. And all of that is reducing on their morale. So for me, your point there is important in giving the police the capacity, and the capacity begins with the individuals, and that has got to do with how much they have been paid. When this new law focus on telling the Ministry of Finance, for example, the police, let's increase their salaries. That is one. But how will the new law focus on the use of police discretion? Mind you, the police job is a discretionary job. And many a time we've seen some bad actors within the police abusing discretion to say, you wait on the under force, you don't need it. Another aspect to look at is that of arrest and detention. You know, with the Police Act, there is a given period of time for which somebody should be detained. But many a time we've seen these provisions being abrogated. So if there is going to be a review in the law, those aspects should be very much considered. And above all, I think, yes, the powers of police detention and arrest should be looked at. But above all, if their capacity is improved upon, and by way of increasing their salaries and making sure that they get their rice supply on time, I think whatever legal reforms are being introduced will yield the dividend. But if it's just the same old story and just a name change, I'm afraid it's going to be business as usual. The essence of changing laws is to change the situation and circumstances. But if you are changing the law and the fabric remains the same.
The concept, Amadou, of changing from a force to a service has to do with you serving the people. Many times Sierra Leoneans have grumbled and have raised concerns about police brutality and police not. We've seen in the US and other places when there are a demonstration, police are there to give other things like this. Do you think the reforms should capture such kind of things to build police officers enough to serve the people rather than to serve politicians?
Well, for me, it is not only for the police service, but we need it in every other service, including the civil service itself. Because this is, it is common. When people are inside in offices, they just think now they have the like Nami old one side, quote unquote. Everybody is less before them. They don't really think about that we are really here to render a service and we're being paid for this service that we are rendering. And for the police, as Melvin stated, the morale, we really need to focus on that in this particular review. Because when you look at their infrastructural wise, we do know that we have police barracks across the country. But when you go to some of these barracks, most of these buildings are dilapidated. We need to also look at that. The law really needs to focus on some of the things that we will have to look at to ensure that when we have these police officers, in terms of service, they'll be able to really deliver the service that they are ought to deliver. Because if you have these lacks within the police, and then it will be a very genuine excuse for them for the continuous indiscipline, some of which the police officers have been engaged in. And again, we should also, the law really needs to focus on the recruitment of police officers. That is very significant in all of this.
For I think 1 minute, you look straight on the recruitment process. Do you think that the criteria for recruitment should be changed in terms of academic level and all of that?
Well, academically, yes, it should be. I am not saying, but they should ensure that if you come with a result, right, the process should be really, really vetted. Okay. Right.
Let me just keep it short there. Let's go for the next story quickly. The next story takes us to Parliament. Parliament has committed the bill entitled the Child Rights Act to the Legislative Committee for further scrutiny and extensive consultation. This comes after it was discovered that the bill has some controversial clauses, especially clause 25, which speaks to the protection of child from harmful practices, especially the aspect of female genital mutilation. The House seems divided on this, as some MPs want it to stay while others want it out, a thought of political shadow. According to Majority Whip, Honorable Dixon Ujas, the bill is a dead trap. However, Deputy Majority Leader Honorable Bashir Siliki, rising on Standing Order 51, calls for the bill to be sent to the Legislative Committee. Let's take a look. 17 years ago, children in Sierra Leone saw a change in the trajectory of their welfare and protection of their rights. A law entitled the Child Rights Act emerged in 2007 to curb the many injustices, victimization, and non-access to their rights. Despite this advancement, the ever-growing need to improve the rights of children remains a stark reality, as child abuse, rape, child labor, and other things darkened the corridors of Sierra Leone with a high magnitude. With an aim to review the extant law of 2007, the Minister of Gender and Children's Affairs comes to the well of Parliament with a new act.
The Child Rights Bill 2024 has responded to most of these, including observations made by the Committee of Experts on the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the Child Rights Bill 2024 seek to repeal and replace the Child Rights Act 2027 for the promotion of rights and responsibility and to meet our obligations as it relates to international and regional instruments.
The new law seeks to address things like child labor, child abuse, early marriage, and issues surrounding female genital mutilation. The latter sparks a huge debate among MPs.
Clause 25 is the only issue. And Clause 25 needs further explanation to all of us. But if you have to perform any traditional right of passage or ceremony or whatsoever that borders on our customs and tradition, let it be done with somebody who knows what is being done to her or him.
In the first place, Mr. Speaker, if we dare enact this bill, first of all, there will be no more even male circumcision.
Things went haywire in the well when the chief whip rises to say the bill is a death trap.
Let me start by saying this bill, if enacted, is a death trap for us in 2028. Serious political death trap.
The bill is not about elections.
This bill is telling us that no more permit to be given to both male and female society.
The chief whip seems adamant in his push.
What do we expect to some of our appointees? Some of them are taking parliament and job for the boys.
So we should not even insulate that one, Mr. Chief, please. We should not insulate that one. Thank you. Are you, please? And this is a government motion. If you are running up on behalf of government, you should be careful.
The bill, after some deliberation, was then committed to the Legislative Committee for scrutiny.
I want to stand on SO 51 to commit this bill to the Legislative Committee for proper scrutiny and to be brought to this House.
The Speaker then calls on citizens, CSOs, and interested bodies to meet with the Legislative Committee and put heads together for a better version of the bill. To fast-track the process, Deputy Majority Leader decided to invoke Section 94 of the 1991 Constitution. However, it went on another route.
That we invoke Section 94 of the Constitution, which is to allow Parliament to regulate itself and move that Parliament sits on Thursday,
Section 81 of the National Constitution gives the right to President to call Parliament at any time. And we are in recess, so he has to call us back if we should sit on Thursday.
Interesting moment in the House as MPs from the ruling bench punch back at themselves. The discussion around Section 94 and the counter-argument with Section 81 opens the minds of citizens to whether emergency summons should be in perpetuity or otherwise. As for the Child Rights Bill, it shall resurface again after scrutiny. Samuel Tony Sawyer, AYV News, Freetown. A very contentious bill there in the House of Parliament. Let me start off with Melvin, a parliamentary journalist. Before we go to the Clause 25, they all talked about Clause 25. Now, this is the Child Rights Bill, repealing 17-year-old law of 2007. Do you think it's injustice that MPs are just focusing on female genital mutilation and surrounding it with political words than looking at other places, other caveats or other clauses in the bill that should protect children, giving more attention to FGM rather than that? Do you think that's injustice?
I think MPs are willing to do so. without holding a brief for them, but the executive seemed to be ambushing MPs. And that has been like a pattern, wherein they will come and tell you that we are bringing a rubber, but inside the rubber, you will find kerosene inside, ambushing the MPs. And that is exactly, but for the edification of our viewers, what is the contentious clause here? It's the provision in the Child Rights Act of 2024 that says in section 25, protection from harmful practices. Mind you, in Sierra Leone, we've not agreed yet on what is harmful practices. Yeah. Let's understand that. But when you go to WHO, they have a catalog of what are harmful practices. So let's understand why MPs are frowning. And I will want to sympathize with their cause also. In provision, it says, a person, court or the other authority shall not involve a child in the participation of harmful practices, including early marriage, child betrothal, and female genital cutting. So underline female genital cutting and its connotation to that of Bondo, and understanding the sensitivity of the fact that most of our MPs are coming from the provinces, and these are typical true countrymen. Many of them belong to fraternities and esoteric societies for which they are scared. If such a law is being passed with this kind of introduction, mind you, it's a child rights bill. Why introducing things like FGM when we know it is very contentious? All right? So, again, I earlier mentioned, what is harmful practice? So, are you going to tell me that OJ, initiation of children into OJ, is harmful practice?
Yeah.
Are you telling me that hunting, if a child is initiated into the society, it's harmful practice? So, because it's too vague, the lawmakers are putting a cap on it. That outline your harmful practices, if you, as long as you want, but introducing strange, Abbas Bunu will say, extraneous content. And this is exactly why the MPs are frowning at it. Because at the end of the day, they don't want to go back to their people and then say, oh, now I say, Bondo not for the, or society business not for the, or not for people to pick. But the fact there is, according to the minister, who I think needs to come down a high horse, the minister sounds very arrogant. And I must say this here. If she wants to succeed, she is not only arrogant with MPs, she was cautioned, she's also very arrogant with journalists. She feels as if she's coming from another planet. And with such an attitude, you will not have the media to support you on that. You will not have the civil society to support, because you feel so much of yourself. Right, and I think, let me just predict, under this minister, it will be something else, because this is not the first time this bill is coming here. It was first introduced in the 4th parliament, some 3 parliaments ago, over 15 years. So if she is coming and introducing, talking to MPs the way she feels like, even when the MPs challenge her that we are not consulted, even the female caucus is not supporting her, it shows that they must have a retrospection. Because at the end of the day,
maybe before I bring in Amadou on this, now with Sierra Leone being a signatory to many international laws like the CEDAW Convention and other laws, do you think it should be more about protecting the rights of child than protecting political interests at this time?
Of course, the law is aiming at protecting the rights of children. But apparently, on the same law, it's another strange matter is being introduced, which has got to do with the issue of FGM. And mind you, when we talk about harmful practices, you can just give a global context to it. In the United States, as the campaign, I think it's just 10 days to go, 11 days, there is this huge debate on the right, pro-choice and pro-life. This is almost the same we are having here. Pro-choice, pro-life. In the West, in America, many people, especially the Democrats, they believe that abortion should be free for all. LGBTQ rights should be free for all. So how are you coming now to tell Africans, Sierra Leoneans, and our lawmakers at Tower Hill that certain cultural practices are harmful? What are your justification? So I can see, I mean, this is a bipartisan opposition to this bill. APC is opposing it, SLPP is opposing it.
If I can bring you on the bill, it's a very controversial bill, very tough one in the House of Parliament, where lawmakers are arguing lengthily, and some are for the fact that it should be passed, the FGM should be inclusive, and some are against the fact that it should be, and some are looking for, like Melville earlier on alluded, that there should be an expression, clear expression of what is harmful practice. What's your take on this, on the House in this one?
Well, I think as Honorable Dixon Rogers said, this bill is indeed a death trap for them, the politicians.
Yeah.
You know, and it, just as Melvin stated, all these people are coming from the provinces, and most of them are pure countrymen. They met this in their family. And if you look at the political history of this country, ranging from the Mani invasion, you know that this has been part of our culture. It is our own political setting, as a matter of fact. Now, the contention here is, it is a bill that is seeking for the protection of every child, regardless of their gender. So, specifying the female genital mutilation...
It's discriminatory.
It's discriminatory also again,
of course,
to some aspects.
Yeah.
So if you're seeking to protect the rights of children, then you should ensure that you do not take it from a gender point of view, but from a rights point of view. Exactly. That is what we really think. So again, for me to understand that the female caucus are not in support of this particular bill, it tells you that they were not consulted when they were talking around this whole thing. So again, the ministry need to engage the members of parliament. There is a committee that will help them to look into this. It is good that the leader, Honorable Bashir, have suggested that they need to look at it from a legislative point of view, because in making these laws, the parliamentarians also do not want to go back to their villages, and then these old people will go and meet them and say, this thing that was making us comfortable as women, we did not go against yours. Now you guys have gone against us, and the women will now start again to
Let's go to the next story so that we'll wrap up quickly in time. The next story has to do with all challenges. Sierra Leone faces significant challenges with poor road network, especially in urban and many rural areas. Many roads across the country are unpaved, poorly maintained or damaged due to heavy rains. Water Street in Sierra Leone is a prime example of poor road network that affects many communities across the country. The poor state of the road at Water Street highlights the broader infrastructural challenges Sierra Leone faces, affecting transportation, commerce, and daily life for many citizens. Let's look at the story as Ami Conte visited the community and files in this report.
The poor state of the road makes it difficult for vehicles to access the area, causing significant delays and inconveniences. Residents often find it hard to get vehicles willing to take the route due to the risks involved, resulting in long waiting times and increased transportation costs. Ronald Koroma shares his experience on the transportation struggles he faces.
I should pay something like 6 leons. They will tell me to pay 15 leons. Then I will tell them, okay, continue your journey, and I will take a tricycle afterwards. The driver will leave me at the juncture. I will then walk to my house because they said their bikes will get spoiled.
Good. Because they say them bike they spoil and other things and the road no good.
Many students at Water Street are currently facing significant challenges due to the poor road network. The deteriorating conditions of the road do not only make going to and from school difficult, but also pose serious safety risks.
It's strenuous, and especially the drainage system nowadays.
We are facing serious challenges, especially when it rains, because water runs through the streets all day, and when there is a heavy downpour, the school kids walk through the water, and when they go to the classrooms, they get wet and mud will be everywhere in the classrooms. It comes with constraints and there is no drainage system.
And small rains can be so got a full because it's not deep.
Many community members believe that the government has a responsibility to ensure the safety and accessibility of roads, as they are crucial for daily commuting, trade, and overall quality of life. Residents argue that improved road network will not only enhance mobility, but also stimulate economic growth by attracting businesses and encouraging trade.
To the end of Kongotong, the road very, very bad.
In the indulgence of the government to pay small attention to Water Street, because Water Street is one of the main routes as diversion from Congo Cross to Congo Town.
and people commonly use Congo Town to go to Vine School, which is another route to less the traffic for people.
For crave the indulgence of government, let the attention pay small now Water Street here, as now one of the main routes as diversion from Congo Cross.
The voices from Water Street reflect a broader need for governmental support in improving the road network, emphasizing that the well-being of the community and its economy depends on the commitment to addressing these infrastructure challenges. Ami Conte, AYV News, Freetown.
Challenges and city loans and potholes, a lot of challenges that this is a huge challenge, that's been affecting many people. Let me start with you, Amadou, on this one. You know, up and down in Freetown and in other places, you have these challenges of poor road affecting women, children, especially girls going to school, and boys also, and even pregnant women. There are some communities you cannot even try. I know the story is trying to pinpoint Water Street, but let's expand on it and look at the country generally.
Well, it is important for us to note that indeed we do have a poor road network, especially in certain communities. That have been said, we still have some significant improvement in terms of road network. That is, some areas across the region, across regions, so to speak. But again, when you come to the capital city itself, you have significant roads that really need to be looked at, because they are always being plied. If you look at Benjamin Lane, for instance, I feel a little bit disappointed with the fact that Benjamin Lane is being ignored, because we know that since November 26 of 2023, that road have been a roadblock. There have been a roadblock, I mean, at certain times on that Pademba Road exit. So,
do you think Sierra Leone should have fast gone ahead of these kind of challenges by this time?
Yes, of course.
60-something years.
Of course. We have the Sierra Leone Road Authority, which always is being given funds to look at some of these areas and see how they can
Melvin, if I bring you in on
I don't know if it is the inadequate funding that they're receiving, but they do have the road maintenance fund from which they should be able to benefit from in order for us to fix this.
Like with these challenges presently inundating the public, I mean, what should be done at this material time to clear this off? Even, you know, in some other countries in the capital, you don't find such things. Now for Sierra Leone, we're still battling with good roads in the capital.
I think the solution to that is that our national development agenda should be legislated. So you'll observe, under the APC, they were constructing roads. But once the SLVP came into office, their direction was changed to something else, education and now agriculture. Until and unless we begin to see that this is not about us versus them, but about development for the people, and what is good is being continued and not discontinued, we will always have this problem. So for me, I think the state of our road just speaks to the state of the country. Because what a person first sees when it comes to Sierra Leone, they use the road. And it's unfortunate, quite unfortunate. Many of them are death traps and causing a lot of havoc on people's mobility.
Like you said, that is a bad picture, by the way.
And the maintenance culture also. I wonder why always RMFA is saying they don't have money, but yet still they are having licensing fee, all those fees. But nonetheless, these fees can never be enough for them to be ameliorating some of these problems. It's quite. If you go to Kisi Road, for example, Fobe Road, these are terrible roads, and definitely it should be. Even the road leading to Parliament, it's so, you know, the best road I can tell you about in Freetown is the State Avenue. Now, the number of people, all the other road then, the one at Parliament, even the one at Shakasiri Street, if you don't get big old way left OP, we not cover, you will get potholes. So it's unfortunate, and it's an embarrassment to us as a country that has got all the mineral wealth, all the human resources, but yet still we cannot be
plus what the development partners are contributing also.
Yes. It is clear that the citizenry is looking forward to amending this issue. So I just want to draw the public's attention to a message that was, to a notice that was brought up in the House of Parliament shortly. So the Office of the Clerk of Parliament wishes to inform the general public, including strangers or visitors, to the precinct of Parliament to adhere to the following measures. 1. For visiting purpose, visitors should be in formal dresses to gain access to Parliament. 2. Visitors should present formal ID card, including passport, national identity card, or driver's license. 3. Visitors should sign a visitor's book and leave their identity with an officer of the house who will provide them with a visitor's tag. Visitors will receive their identity upon returning the tags after visitation. 5. Only ministers, diplomats, and journalists are allowed to enter the Chamber of Parliament with their phones. 6. Other persons would have to leave it at the main entrance and their phones will be given to them thereafter. And 7, these measures will take effect on the 31st of this October month when the House shall reconvene again after the adjourned date, before the adjourned date that was set the other last time. So Melvin, let me start off with you again. I think I would love to start with you when it comes to parliamentary issues, and I'm going to bow. So this notice from the clerk, what's your analysis of this one, basically?
I think these are measures to instill security and stability within the House. Apparently, for items 5 or measure 5, I think that is self-explicit, because if you go to other jurisdictions, you're not allowed to take along your phone inside the chamber. I've been to the House of Reps, the Senate in Nigeria, I've been to the Liberian, the Benin, the Cape Verde. All these countries, their parliaments are very stringent when it comes to security and protocol. Apparently, now I'm seeing item measure 6. Other persons will have to leave it at the main entrance and their phones will be given to them thereafter. I think this is a bit contentious, because if you've already instituted what I would call restrictions of phone in the chamber, I think that is reasonable enough. But to restrict somebody's phone to just enter the precinct itself, I think this needs some clarity. If it's about entering any one of the galleries or entering the chambers,
it should be made clear.
Because as it stands, it's very clear that leave it at the main entrance and their phones will be given to them thereafter. What are the measures that when people drop their phones at this main entrance?
In a digital age like this, when the phone is is very much important. I mean, you go into parliament to spend an hour or two, and then they are telling you that you should leave your phone at the entrance till your work be done. Be it you going to the chambers or you walking around the precinct. Amado, do you think that is a little bit infringing on people's privacy or something? I don't want to use privacy, but do you think it's infringing on their rights?
Well, I don't really think so. I mean, oftentimes these things have been done to ensure that you have, I don't know how to say it, but let me just say, you have a very secured and a friendly environment.
So far, what's the threat? Let's look at the threat, basically. What's the threat been so far with regards to phone in Parliament?
Well, I just think that the Parliament wants to ensure that these laws are being implemented. As Melvin have stated, prior to the, it's not only in Sierra Leone. Every chambers has their own rule. And if that is part of their rule, they should implement it. And for me, when it comes to people coming with all the identifications and signing the book, I don't think that has got anything to do with
any contention.
Any contention. But also when it comes to the phone, you know, people will do things for no just cause. You know, somebody will go into the parliament and take unsolicited pictures.
With the cyber law on, do you think shouldn't we leave it to the law? Rather, if you get unsolicited pictures and all of that, you leave it to the law rather than these measures?
I am now grappling to read the reason behind measure 6, because, you know, there is the constitutional provision that says MPs must not seek to alienate themselves from the people. Okay? So whether people not entering parliament with their phones, with the exception of diplomats, ministers, and journalists, is a form of alienation, I think we need to consult best practice again. But in many jurisdictions, phones are restricted in the chamber, but not necessarily the precincts of parliament. And that's where I think it's going to be a bit problematic, because on what basis the right...
With the current push for parliament to be an open parliament, do you think this restriction augments that idea?
Well, somebody will easily say, well, it's perhaps undermining it, but that will be an hasty conclusion, because you need to dissect what's what international best practice says on entering parliament or the precincts of parliament with phone. I suspect this should be a need for an interpretation, and I hope lawyers like Soyi Senge Mara, who is very known for being litigious, will perhaps want to challenge particularly measure 6. I don't think I would support measure 6, because what if the person needs communication urgently and free expression is now tied to the use of our gadgets?
Has there been any instance wherein the phone has been a major problem within parliament?
Oh, yeah. In all my close to 20 years experience, people have taken pictures of very awful, woeful pictures. People have eavesdropped. People have been recording. You know, we are there. But
with the notion of open parliament, I mean, that's still live streamed on Facebook.
Yes, but at the end of the day, for me, it's about the personal, not the institutional anymore. It's about the person's right to have access to their device or gadgets to communicate. And freedom of expression and communication is a fundamental human right.
And should not be limited.
And should not be curtailed. Yeah. So in as much as I agree with Parliament on measure 5, I won't agree with them on measure 6. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, what if possible left in phone na security a loss? Who takes the responsibility for that? That is one. What if somebody deceitfully come phone when not left, it can take and go? What would be the rigorous measures in somebody dropping his phone, being given a card to identify your phone? It's going to be a huge work on the police. Let me just state this. It's going to be additional task on the police, because at this time now, they are not going to be focusing on giving entrance or searching. They have what I would call some administrative duties now to do.
So maybe for the sake of time, let me just hold you there. I mean, it's been a fruitful discussion this morning. I mean, thank you, Melvin. Thank you, Amado. So, well, viewers, that's where we draw the curtain today for this edition of Weekend Review. We hope you find our discussions and deliberations very fruitful and amazing this morning. We wish we had time to read comments in our comment box, but we are hard pressed for time. We can't read them now. However, we want to say thank you again for joining us, as you have made this show beautiful this morning. Till we meet again, I've been your presenter, Samuel Tony Sawyer. Have a lovely weekend.